Hey everyone, welcome to our AMA where you get to learn about some cool stuff on OpenTelemetry and Dynatrace. My name is Adriana Villela. I am one of the developer advocates here at Dynatrace, and I'm one of the maintainers of the OTel end user SIG and a CNCF ambassador. And I'm joined here by my fellow teammate, Henrik, who's also CNCF ambassador. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yay! Welcome everyone. Good to see you all. It's been a while that we didn't have Ask Me Anything, to be honest. So my name is Henrik. Like I said, I'm a cloud native advocate. So focus on Kubernetes, open telemetry, everything which is open something, open observability, I would say. Like you mentioned, I'm a CNCF ambassador, and also I try to produce content, technical content. I try to be gentle with you guys to explain things on different frameworks and different technologies around the market.
Awesome. Yeah, and I have to vouch for Henrik's content because I've used it myself. So yeah, it's been great and it's fun.
So where you're connected today? Are you in Toronto?
I am in Toronto, Canada, where we are experiencing a very hot summer. I don't know as hot as what Europe has been experiencing lately, but it's definitely been hot. How about you, Henrik? Where are you connecting from?
I'm connected from south of France, not so far from Marseille. So we had a very intensive heat a few days ago, and then we had a very stressful fire that happens close to Marseille city, but everything went well, and now the city is saved, and we don't have any major dangers. So thanks for the firemen.
Oh wow, that's definitely scary. So, shall we nerd out on OpenTelemetry?
Definitely. I
Okay.
mean, if you've been following, there's been a webinar or a session that has been presented a few weeks back. So if you are interested to, so the audio is fine. So I think there's a problem on the audio. I don't know if can anyone hear us? Is anyone can able to hear us? Just to confirm. You have Ajmal from Montpellier. Whoa!
Ooh, exciting.
So it seems that you can hear us. So a few weeks ago there was like a sort of a webinar about OpenTelemetry, and it seems that a lot of people had more questions related to ingest, how to send data, how to index data with any objects or any entities that could be running in your environment. So and here we are. So if you have any questions and if you have any doubts or we just drop your questions. We have almost an hour together. So if you can ask yourself, how do I ingest logs back to Dynatrace and index that? Yes, this is the right session for you. So Adriana, where do you want to start?
Yeah, so let's start out. So I've got some. First of all, I think we want to start off by talking about, if you're a Dynatrace user and you're looking to use OpenTelemetry, you might be wondering, you might have the burning question in your mind. Well, how is it that Dynatrace is connected to the OpenTelemetry community? So first of all, we are one of the top contributors to the OpenTelemetry project. We've been around since the beginning. Fun fact. We do have a dedicated OpenTelemetry team, and we are involved in a number of special interest groups like the ones listed on the screen. So semantic conventions, JavaScript, end user. I'm one of the maintainers for end user SIG, collector, demo app. I think, Henrik, you've dabbled in a bunch of the SIGs as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm going around everywhere.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's right.
I'm more active on the tag observability and tag sustainability. So it's initiative for other stuff.
Awesome. And also, I should mention that Henrik has been doing some great work behind the scenes for the OTel end user SIG. He's really upped the production quality of our live streams for the end user SIG. So thank you for that. So other stuff that we're involved with. So you might be wondering, we're talking about ingest. So Dynatrace does ingest OpenTelemetry data natively via OTel HTTP. So if you have a collector and you configure it to point to Dynatrace, we will take your data. So we have support for OTel traces, logs, and metrics. And we do also have our own OTel Collector distribution. Now you might be wondering, okay, why would you want to use the Dynatrace OTel Collector distribution? So you don't have to. We do support like the OTel Collector contrib. But if you want to use the Dynatrace OTel Collector, first of all, it's worth mentioning that it is covered by Dynatrace support, which I know is a big thing for a lot of enterprise customers. Enterprise customers are willing to embrace open source, but they need to know that there's someone available in support in case things go south. So it is covered by Dynatrace support. It is made up of collector components that are verified by Dynatrace. So you know that they play nice with Dynatrace. It's kept up to date with the latest and greatest security patches as well, because we all know that no matter what kind of organization you're a part of, security is super important, and it is up to date with the upstream components of the collector. So we do play nice with OTel Collector contrib. So definitely worth taking a look at if that's something that tickles your fancy. Continuing on our theme, what is it that you need to do if you want to send OTel data to Dynatrace? Well, we're receiving data from a data source. So the data source can be infrastructure or it can be your application. You want to make sure that you configure your OTel collector's exporter to point to Dynatrace, and we'll show you what that looks like. And then, of course, you're going to process the data. So you will configure various processors, whichever ones suit your needs. Henrik is going to dig into some of the OTel processors that you might want to consider looking at. And I will say Henrik has dug super deep into OTel Collector configuration. So some of the gnarliest, most detailed collector configurations I've ever seen. So I've learned a ton of stuff from him. So now that we understand at a high level how we send data to Dynatrace, what does that actually mean in terms of configuration? So first of all, you need a Dynatrace tenant. So if you're a Dynatrace user, you can go over to where it says your name at the bottom, and then you can see your tenant name over there. So you can see mine is that KCZ tenant. The other thing that you need is a Dynatrace access token. So basically, if you're familiar with Dynatrace, if you type in token after hitting Command K, there's a screen that it brings you up to so that you can create an access token. And I believe there's a Kubernetes ingest template that should give you all of the things that you need.
I don't remember if maybe they probably have added the OpenTelemetry, but few months
yeah.
back there was not the OpenTelemetry scope. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you start from the Kubernetes one, then add just the missing one, which is OpenTelemetry traces, then you get everything.
Yeah, I think actually the Kubernetes one does include the traces.
It does. Oh,
It does. Yeah.
that is
Yeah,
a
so it does
great
the
job
traces,
from them.
logs, metrics, so all in one. Ta-da! And then you might be wondering, what does this actually look like in your OTel Collector config? So this is where you configure your exporter. So you specify your endpoint. So you include your tenant name. And then if you're using the SaaS version of Dynatrace, so then it's got the live.dynatrace.com/API/v2/OTLP. And then you put in your API token, and caution, you don't want to expose these in your configuration file. You hopefully have these mounted as a secret if you're deploying to Kubernetes, and don't put your secrets in version control. And final reference, if you want more details on sending your OTel data to Dynatrace, I do have a blog post in which, so I'm newer to Dynatrace compared to Henrik. I joined in November of 2024, so I was exploring how to send OTel data to Dynatrace. So I wrote a blog post on the Dynatrace blog. So if you scan the QR code on the screen, you can check out the blog post, and I go through all of the steps in excruciating detail. Okay, Henrik, let's see. Are we, shall we continue? Do you have a demo?
Let's first remind the actual things that we need to do, and then I can show it as a hands-on. I
Sounds
think that will
good.
make sense. So I think you had a next, if you go to there's a few slides after that.
Yes, of course.
There was one summarizing the boxes with sampling and everything.
Oh, shoot. Oh, I seem to have lost that slide. Crap.
So okay, let me see if I have it on a backup. But anyway, what is important is you are going to deal with OpenTelemetry data, which is metrics, traces, logs, and because we're utilizing this amazing component, which is the collector, you are not limited to any specific data source. You can scrape metrics from Prometheus, you can get some data from whatever. If you're creative, you can get anything that you want from anywhere. So that the collector will be there as your best friend, because you will basically receive data and you will have to process them. And it's going to be important. Why processing them? Because there are a few things behind the scenes when you deal with OpenTelemetry data. In fact, not OpenTelemetry data, with telemetry data in general for observability. There are a few things that is required, which is one, you need to enrich your data. And enrich the data, you may ask yourself, why do I need to enrich the data? Well, I mean, you can use any observability solution like a random data lake where you just throw the data without any relationship between things, but you don't want to go there. You want to make sure that you're taking advantage of Dynatrace, and for that, you want to add some extra information, the context, to your metrics, to your traces, to your logs, and then once that data arrive in Dynatrace, then it will be glue to the various components that exists in the platform. So if you're running Kubernetes, meaning that the logs will be attached to your pod, the link to the pod to the service will happen. So everything that you expect from a user experience perspective will be there. So that's why you need to be able to enrich that data. So that's the first piece, enriching the data, and then we will jump. I will go hands-on and explain things on using an environment that I've just prepared. And for that environment, what do I have? So I have a Kubernetes cluster, and then I have deployed the Dynatrace operator. And let me share my screen, and it will be easier to highlight everything. All right. So if you see my screen, I see that it's moving. So it works fine. So I have first the Dynacube. So Dynacube, for those who never heard about it, it's basically the actual component in charge of observing your Kubernetes cluster. And here I have deployed it only as a Kubernetes monitoring, getting the data from your pods, from the resource usage, and so on. And then what I'm doing here, if you see here, I have deployed this operator as metadata enrichment equal true. So you may say, okay, but what does this actually means? Well, let me, if I can zoom, I think it's Control plus. Yeah, it's going to be better. So I'm going to do kubectl. I'm going to show you a workload. So here I have a crash flag D that crashed through. Anyway, so here you can see that I have different workload. I'm going to pick one of those one of those pods, and I'm going to describe. And by doing this, you will see that that's the dollar in the end was not really. So you can see here we have this the definition of this pod. I could have done it in Dynatrace, of course, but just for the sake of the hands-on approach, I wanted to show you this. So first things, you can see that we have an init container that has been injected by the operator, and this is going to do the injections. And if you pay attention, by doing this, Dynatrace just added few annotations called metadata, dynatrace.com, and then you have a couple of details like the workload kind, the workload name, some details. Okay, and then of course we have the other type of details. So you may ask yourself, okay, great, I have the workload kind and workload name, but why do I need this? Okay, why do I need this? Well, simple. If I go back to okay, if I go back here, what I want here, I have a collector deployed, as you can see. What I want is now the data that comes in my collector. If you see this current pipeline, it's doing pretty much nothing. I'm receiving OpenTelemetry. I'm collecting metrics from myself. Let me zoom in if you want. So I'm collecting metrics from myself. I'm receiving OpenTelemetry on gRPC and HTTP. And here you can see I'm just adding some resources called with the cluster name. And then I'm exporting like Adriana just mentioned to us, we need to put the exporter. So it's sending to Dynatrace. And you can see here, I'm receiving OTLP and I'm just sending it back to Dynatrace. I'm not doing anything about it. And same thing for Prometheus metrics, so the one for the collector, same thing for the metrics from received by OpenTelemetry, and same thing for the logs received by OpenTelemetry. So what is the consequence of such a pipeline? Do you have an idea? And nobody's reacting. Guys, we need it's alive. You're supposed to also send some comments to us. Oh gosh, it's like I'm speaking to myself. So if I go back here and I look, for example, to so I have different I'm going to Dynatrace. I'm going to open to the service app screen, and of course I need to pick the right cluster because I have a lot of different clusters. And here I got different services, and I know by chance what I was clever enough to rename the services from the cluster that I'm using, so then I don't mismatch with the other cluster. So I click on checkout. Here you can see I got some traces. Nice, perfect. And then infrastructure, there is nothing. There's nothing. So I'm wondering, how can I link that? So no way of getting back to the pod, no connection. So my experience is pretty bad. It's just data lake. So let's improve that. So how can I improve this? Well, first I need to add, because we are in a Kubernetes environment, I need to add the metadata related to Kubernetes. And for this, what do you know which processor exists in the collector that allow to do that?
Oh, can I answer?
Yes, of course. You go ahead. Which one?
It's the Kubernetes attributes processor.
Perfect. Woo! Yeah. So to be able to do that, the collector, the resolution of the screen is quite low. Okay. So let me zoom in if you want. But so when I deploying my collector, I am defining an airbag to the collector, and that airbag allows the collector to interact with the Kubernetes API to get some details about the various objects and everything. So why do I need this? Simple, because then with the Kubernetes attribute processor is going to basically interact with the Kubernetes API to collect the missing resources. So I'm not going to type everything because it's going to be a waste of time for you guys. But let me add it. So it's in a processor, so which means I'm going to set my processor under processors, and I'm copy pasting up. So what do we have here? A couple of things. I want to extract. So this is basically, I'm asking to add, let me zoom in if you want. I'm asking to add to the collector, to the Kubernetes attribute processor, to add to the various pipeline, so metrics, traces, and logs, the pod name, the pod UID, the deployment, the stateful set, daemon set, whatever. So this is all the fields that I'm asking. And remember the enrichment piece that I showed you with the operator. This is where it comes handy. So here now we have I'm basically grabbing the annotations from the object, the pod here, and I'm trying to get this extra field called metadata dynatrace.com. So it's going to be adding as well on top of the resources. And then when you use the community attribute processor, you need to have a match, because it's going to send a query. You need to match what type of details do I have on my hands corresponding to the API. And so here we can see that we have different rules. So it says, from the resource attribute, if there's a pod name and namespace, we're going to use those two fields, and we're going to match it to the community API. And if not, if there is no pod name or resource namespace name, then I will take the pod IP. And if it doesn't exist, I will take the pod UID. And if it doesn't exist, I'm going to use the connection. So which means if I'm receiving OTLP from an IP address, so I know the IP source, then I'm going to use the IP source. And usually with the community API, you can resolve who is behind that IP address and get the actual object name. So that's for just the processor. So that's great, but it's not enough. What happens? Oh. What happens here? It's not enough. Oh, here. It's not enough. What I want now is to use transform. Why do I need to use transform? Because I have the data now, but now I want to link it to standardize naming rules. And here it is. So I'm going to use transform, as you can see. And here I'm defining a trace statement. So it's going to be everything about traces. And I'm naming that like a sort of a macro, like a function. Okay. And here the context is going to be on the resources. And you can see I'm setting the Kubernetes workload kind, the workload name, and based on if it's a job, it's going to be a job. If it's a cron job, it's going to be a cron job. So I'm filling in those fields. And then at the end, I'm deleting all the attributes that I don't need at the end, because it's going to be just extra noise and storage to be involved. And then I do the same thing for metric statements. So I'm rerunning that. So every metrics will have the same transform, and logs will have the same transform. So now we have pretty much the enrichment. And one thing which is missing, which is the core, which is not related to enrichment. In fact, it's more about how data will flow in your collector. And there is two processor, which is critical from the core of the collector. It's called batch. So it's going to take all the records, put it in a batch. And then when the batch here, the size of the batch is 1000. Once I reach the 1000 size, or the batch size is here, so the max size is 1000, but the batch size is 800. So it's pulling everything, 800 metrics or 800 logs or 800 traces. It's pulling it. Once it's ready, boom, it's going to send it. So batch will be one of the last pieces of our pipeline. And then last, we need memory limiter, because at the end, it's a collector could consume memory. So we want to control it and avoid to be OM killed or anything. So now we've defined most of the processor that we need. The last thing we need to do is to fill in this pipelines the stuff that we need. So remember, first I've said we need to start by memory limiter. So let's copy the name so that I don't do any mismatch. And I'm going to put it as the first step of every pipeline that I have here. Here, and then I'm going to do same thing for metrics and logs for logs, and that's it. Now that we have this, the next thing that I want to do is I want to finish by batch, remember? So I'm going to put the last step on every of my pipeline as a batch, because I want to batch the data, and also batch will compress the data, so it will provide a lot of value behind the scenes. Now that we have this in the middle, what do we want to do? So we want to enrich. So we're going to use Kubernetes attribute processor. Here it is. Let's put that. And we're going to put it here as a first step. And we're going to do the same thing for traces as a first step. After, not the first step, but the second step after the memory limiter. And we do the same for logs. Here it is. And so now we have the flow. And last, we want to transform. So then we add, you remember this Kubernetes workload kind and workload name and everything. So now let's put it just after Kubernetes attribute processor. And last, for the logs, let's do that. And for the traces. And last thing that we need, remember, I have this resource. It's going to add a Kubernetes cluster name. I don't remember if you have defined that. So you may create an empty field, but let's add an empty field. Let's be crazy. And then let's put it just after transform. Here it is, and here it is. So now we have done a lot of changes in our pipeline. So we are, I may be overconfident, but let's apply it up. Here it is, and then go back here, and I'm going to say kubectl apply. I think I have it on the history of the command. That would be smart if I had. Yes, I have it. Okay, and now secrets. Always check once you have done updates on your collector if it's actually running. So now the collector has been terminated and nothing's happening. This is where this is this is the live demo. So if you have that, I'm using the operator. So in that case, I'm gonna do something. I may have introduced something weird. Let's just do it for some reason. I was just too. It's my local cluster which is sitting under the desks. If I can put up a camera to show you the small cluster I have. But it's under the desk, and it's doing what it is. And you see here it's running, meaning that if I wait a few seconds, now if we re-look at the services and we re-look at the things that we're sending, it should be enriched. So we should have the connection now to the services that we had, which was disconnected to anything, back to an actual infrastructure component or anything else. So that's the purpose of so let's wait a few minutes and then see if it goes well. Up. Yeah, let's wait a few seconds. It should come up soon. I'm gonna.
This is the part where like you're just like, come on, data, get in there.
I have a lot of HTTP errors. That's weird. So properties. Up. Not yet. And then if I do logs, same thing for the logs, by the way. If you do the same thing with the logs, and then if I do infrastructure, yeah, it should come up. I mean, I'm confident about it. But let's wait a few seconds to let because maybe I'm looking at a time frame that is over spread out, and it should go right. But we can go to a next topic. Do we have any question, by the way? Because I'm talking so far. I didn't look at.
We did have a question earlier. Let me just.
Oh, it's Ajmal who said.
It was one from. Let's see, where'd it go? Oh,
I'm hearing about Dynatrace in the recent times. Apart from observability and monitoring, is it having any other features like data analysis? Oh,
yes.
You don't know the core because I'm just explaining how you send data. But once you have data back in Dynatrace,
there is the magic.
You can do so many things. Yeah. You can get crazy. You can do.
Henrik has gone crazy in the data analytics part with the most gnarly queries I've ever seen.
So I can show you just as a side note. So I'm preparing that's a sneak to the next video I'm releasing for Dynatrace. So let me. Oh, I don't see my screen. So let me zoom in to see you query. So you can do you can use our everything that is coming in the system is going to store in a Grail. Grail is like a big storage where traces, metrics, and logs will be stored there. So you can consume every application that we have. So the one I showed you, the services, or if you look at the distribute traces app, for example, which is it's going to be up distribute. Here it is. Everything that is basically displayed and loaded, Kubernetes component, everything behind the scenes is actually data stored in Grail. So you can basically query everything, every single thing that comes in Dynatrace, everything is queryable.
And I think the best part, my favorite part, is that, we often see in industry a lot of practitioners of OTel bringing in like one system for traces, one system for logs, one system for metrics. Well, Dynatrace can ingest all of that and allows you to correlate all of your telemetry signals so that you can see that big picture, which I think is super important, because the problem with having these different bringing in your telemetry to different systems is that you don't have the power of correlation, right? You're going from like, okay, this log over here, how do I correlate it to that trace? It's not obvious, right? And Grail and DQL, Dynatrace Query Language, allows you to see that correlation.
But yeah, to take an example of what Adriana just mentioned. So here I'm going to zoom in, so then you say, oh, that's a complicated query. But if you don't want to go to technical aspects, you can just consume our apps. But if you want to if you understand the data model, and you like to do queries, then you can start querying it for dashboards. But then you have the workflow, which is an automation. So once the data is stored, so here is an example where I start from an entity model, so the topology. I'm grabbing the actual memory usage of my pods, of my workload, and I'm joining the actual percentile of my spans. So then I have the pod consumptions plus the response times. And then what I'm doing, for those who do some analytics, I'm using the Pearson correlation number to get the correlation between the CPU usage and the response times, and CPU memory usage and response times. And then based on the correlation number, I can see that the two metrics are correlated, so they have the same patterns. If memory is increasing, then response time is increasing. And then this is basically showing me a list of workloads. So then I can take actions to do scaling or resizing or whatever you want. But that just an example from a pure perspective. There was a question because I thought it was coming up very fast. We are currently Dynatrace customers. We use Kubernetes and OneAgent, but we still have extra OTel Collector set up in our Kubernetes cluster to collect custom OTel metrics with dimensions, custom trace spans with metadata attributes. Can we configure OneAgent to? So short answer. As of now, you will have to deploy the Dynatrace Collector distro or your own distro. There's no differences. And then later on, in a future, we'll say, there will be a simpler journey for you where you don't have to manage that collector. But for now, you still have that. You're still in that journey. This is a more MQT questions, very specific to questions. And then, so here it says what it says. My question: if we can use OneAgent alone with extra OTel collectors, that maybe can reach. So as of now, I would say if you're instrumenting with OpenTelemetry, you don't want to have another component that start basically re-instrumenting it on the fly. So if you're pure OpenTelemetry, then no need of injecting an agent that will consume licenses. So I will leave just OpenTelemetry and do the enrichment to send it back to Dynatrace. And then but stay tuned, things will change in the future. But for now, it's if you're lazy and you think that OneAgent does an amazing job for your instrumentation, use OneAgent. It's going to do a fantastic job and bring a lot of values, and also a lot of features that you may have heard recently, like busy events. No, it's not a recent feature, it's an old feature. But busy events and all the security, AppSec, and of course live debugger. This is basically embedded in OneAgent. So if you want to take advantage, you will have it. But we'll see. Stay tuned. Things will be better. Debug MQTT data streams between devices. Huh. That's a Ajmal. This is not an OpenTelemetry question. No, just a joke. No, so this is a good point. I will check it out. I may think that we have a queuing. I want to answer something bad. I may ask internally with the product manager if we do anything magic around that for sure. All right, so I think I'm
Henrik, I do have that slide back up if you want to.
Oh yeah, awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah. Give me one sec. Here we go. Yes, this is the slide that you were talking about for describe the things that we were doing.
So we were basically we covered so far the box on the right, which is enrich. So enriching the data. So you can see that it's really, really critical to enrich the data. Otherwise, you don't want to have your observability data like a backend, like a data lake. You want to have the topology created, logs connected to metrics, to your traces, to your pod, to whatever. So enrichment is like one of the very important aspects of that. Then we have convert, we have filter, because we want to simplify things, and then we have reduce cardinality, and last we have sampling. So small vote. You have 3 seconds. What are the topics that you want to cover? Convert, filter, reduce cardinality, or sampling. Come on, guys,
We should have done like a poll.
I can cover. So I don't know. We can cover one of the others. So because I've prepared things for you guys.
Oh, I mean, I think one thing that I think, and maybe I'm speaking for people, but one topic that I think is quite interesting that a lot of people might not be as versed in is sampling. So I think that could be an interesting one.
Good point. Maybe we can jump into. So just remind. So what if anyone is aware? All four. Oh,
all four. Fair point. Fair point.
You're challenging me. We have. Okay, so let's start with sampling. So sampling, very simple. What you need to sample, because at the end, sending 100% of your traces back to an observability system Dynatrace will store it without any problems, but it will be very expensive. You will consume a lot of storage for nothing. So what we want here is to basically apply the right sampling decision. If you have one agent, sampling is already embedded in the agent. So you don't even consider that. It's been managed by one agent. So then only the right meaningful data comes back to the system. But when it comes to OpenTelemetry, there are different way of sampling: head sampling, which is at the component level, and then you have tail sampling, which means, and this is going to showcase because I think it's the most precise details. It's basically the way of sampling in a smart way. So tail sampling is one of the processor based in the collector. As you can see in this diagram, I'm receiving traces, and then the collector receive it and store them in memory. And then once you have stored in memory, it will apply some sampling decision based on rules. And what are the rules we want to apply? Well, I want to keep the requests that are slow. So basically based on the response times. I want to send to Dynatrace all my errors. I want to send a portion of specific services. If there are some endpoints that are very chatty, generates a lot of spans in the background, I can basically say I will rate limit them. I can also say, oh, I'm only interested in spans that are between 4 to 10 spans, because if it's less than 4, maybe it's some strange things. So you can basically put lots of rules behind the scenes. So let me share my screen, and let's go back to our demo that we had. And here, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to zoom out. So I have prepared another collector. So this one is called OTel back. OTel back, because it's going to be another one. And why do I need another collector? Because tail sampling is going to be super expensive and intensive in memory. So what I want to do is go through the first collector. That collector will do the enrichment that we just did before. And once we have enriched that data, then what we want to do is to load balance the data into various replica variable. In this particular case, let's set the replica to 2. So we have 2 collectors, and that 2 collectors will basically receive the traces. And tail sampling is based on a trace ID. So I need to have all the spans on a given trace to go to the same replica. Otherwise, the sampling decision will be completely wrong. So that's what we're going to do.
Just to confirm something, just for folks watching. So just to reiterate, so you are creating a dedicated collector just for sampling. It's focused on tail sampling.
Yep, correct.
And this is specifically just for traces.
And it's going to be specific. I mean, I could also do the metric conversion. So we can talk about that later. But metric conversion is going to be key if you deal with Prometheus metrics. And metric conversion is another processor that is super expensive in memory. So you may consider to do that as well by using a load balancer. So the first thing I want to do here, before doing anything, I'm going to go back to the first collector. So the one that we touched base a few minutes ago. And I'm going to add something. It's not an exporter. It's not a processor. It's a connector. And what I'm doing here, let me zoom in if you want. What I'm doing here with that connector is going to receive traces, spans. So this, remember, that's the collector that is not sampling. So for the moment, I have 100% of traffic coming in. And what I want to do here is I want to produce stats out of that. So I'm going to use the connector span metrics, and he's going to create metrics into delta, and that's delta is the specific format of metrics that I mentioned. There's two metrics format, and that's going to be used. So meaning that first, you can see we have added that. So I'm going to use span metrics, and I'm going to add it. And here the traces will send. So it's going to be sending his traces to the span metrics, and the metrics here will receive up the. Oh, I'm going to do a specific. Sorry, I'm just thinking that it's going to be makes more sense because it's already enriched, so I don't have to add any extra processing. So I'm going to call it metrics traces. Okay, and here I'm going to use. It's going to receive span metrics, and then up the rest. I don't care. Boom. And then it's going to export it. So it means I'm receiving 100% of the metrics, 100% of the spans, traces, and I'm producing metrics on the fly. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing I want to do, I mentioned we want to load balance. And here it is. I'm going to add, as an exporter, an exporter that is very handy called the load balancing exporter. And I'm going to have two of them, one for metrics and one for traces, but let's focus on traces first. So let's, here I'm saying the key will be the service. So every services will be sent, but by default, it's going to be a trace ID. But every traces, I mean, here it's basically services mean trace ID. And here is going to use the OTLP protocol, insecure, and then I'm using Kubernetes. So here is the OTel back. Remember the other services deployed in my cluster OTel back that has two replica. So it's going to use the DNS, core DNS to make the resolution, and then the data we send flowing in. So that's the first configuration I do on my main collector, I would say. Now let's go back to the other one, where we're going to apply our sampling decision. So here, what we're going to do is very simple. First thing that oh yeah, let's I have other things to say stuff. So I'm gonna take this piece of code here, or piece of configuration, and I'm gonna add at the same. It's a processor, so I'm gonna add tail sampling. And here is my configuration. So basically, it's you can see it's like a JSON object. So first, I'm configuring a cache, timeout. I'm waiting 10 seconds. Max, I'm storing in memory 1,000 spans, 1,000 traces. Sorry. Then I'm defining a decision cache where I'm storing 100,000 traces. That's just the size of the sample cache, and then I have a known sample cache. And then here, this is where I'm defining my policy. So I have one policy says everything that is above 100 milliseconds, then let's sample it. Here, everything that has an error, that's sampling it. And then I'm playing with the attributes. Everything that has attribute called HTTP status code that is between 400 and 500, which is technically an HTTP error. Let's sample it. Same thing for gRPC. And then I'm doing a specific things for, because I'm producing traces from my collector that could be expensive. So I'm creating a complex rule like end. If it's part of the service name OTel contrib, then only take 5%. And then for the rest, if I have nothing matched, I take 25%.
Now, so just a follow-up question on that. When you define these rules, does it pull then the entire trace associated with a span that meets those criteria?
So this is an excellent question. So what the collector will do is if your application takes a lot of time to produce, like the response time is like 35 seconds, then it means that the collector will store in memory all the spans during 35 seconds. So the memory will grow up. Mm-hmm. But that's why, for example, some organization like eBay, they are delaying the spans. So they are storing it on a like a temporary storage, and then pushing it to the collector. So then they know that the time to get the entire trace to the collector will be very shorter. And here I didn't do anything. So I said, okay, I know that my app is a web app, so transaction should be less than 10 seconds. So I'm a trace. So the collector will wait to get the entire trace 10 seconds. So I have a trace, and then during 10 seconds, he's waiting to get all the spans. And once you have the spans available, you make a decisions. And this is why when you do this tail sampling, there is another very important feature. Let me zoom in. Called feature gates. And this is going to be crucial because we want to produce new metrics about the sampling decision. Because at the end, you're doing sampling on different conditions, and you don't know how much data you have. And here, the collector, by doing these feature gates, it will produce new metrics, like, and you will be able to calculate the sampling decisions. If a sample decision has been generated before we actually received all the traces. So there's a lot of great metrics behind the scenes. So now we have everything defined. Let's deploy that. I don't know how much time we have left. Oh, it's running.
Oh yeah, time flies.
Okay, so let's deploy. The first thing I'm going to do, because remember, the first collector is actually relying on the second collector, the one for sampling. So, it reminds me that I forgot some changes. In fact, I forgot. Where is? Let me change this because we don't see it. Oh, I forgot to see. Oh yeah, there's nothing here. So let's we have deployed something that is not doing anything. So here, let's batch. Remember, batch is the last. So I'm going to put it here. Memory limiter is the first. Boom. And I don't have to do any enrichment because remember, it comes from the other collector. And then what I'm doing here is I'm calling just the tail sampling. That's the pipeline, the targeted pipeline for our traces. So here it is.
And
I got
Henrik,
it.
just is the other collector then, just to confirm on the setup, is the other collector sending then our telemetry data to this collector?
Yes, and that's the thing that I forgot. So remember, I used the load balancing here, and load balancing is configured. Great, but nobody's sending anything. So now instead of sending it to Dynatrace, now the traces, let's drop it and put the load balancer. So now my traces, enriched, and then send to it will send it to the load balancer, meaning the other collectors that will do tail sampling. All right, now boom, I'm going back. Let's apply those changes. It's the same collector that we had. So, oh no, I need to apply. Here it is. It's not stateful set. It's something called, I don't remember. I think it's OTel with a minus up. Default stateful set. Apply. So now I've created that. Let's check. I should have 2 replica. You can see it's OTel back is there. Let's wait a bit to see if there's any error. So let's put a watch. And it's on the way. Okay, I got my 2 collectors running. Now again, what I'm going to do next is apply our stateful set collector, which is here. Okay, and then let's check the pods. And I don't know why this one is taking forever to terminate, and it should have scheduled the other one, but yeah, never mind. That's something. That's something. Oh yeah, remember. I did that. Yeah, never mind. I'm discovering my cluster. Up. Terminating. Come on. Ooh. Oh, it's running. Ooh, I thought it was a big error. But
stress.
So it seemed fine. Let me remove the W to confirm. Yes, it's there. It's running. So let's zoom out. And then first, I mentioned 2 things. I mentioned the importance to have a dashboard that was available in the episode about sampling. For those who don't watch my content, yes, there are some Dynatrace pieces inside of it. And yes, you can also get the dashboards. And yes, they are in GitHub. So here you can see that a couple of information. You can see that the stats about the trace dropped early, the removal age. So that's the copy one, because I was doing things with. Let me open the one official one, because that's changed things for some recent presentation. Up. Come on. Okay. So here normally, yes, my Dapper, that's the cluster I'm using. So I can, oh, I didn't do the filter. Okay. Let's remove the filter then. Yeah. So that's basically you can see the sampling ratio. So here we are sampling at 50% on the status. So I'm getting 50% of the metric, the errors, and on the 5% of the OpenTelemetry stuff. So you can basically see how much your data you're actually dealing with. Now let's go back to our service screen. Come on, and then select front end. Up, and then we start. Normally, if I zoom in, zoom out, or we will a few seconds, but we should have less data coming in. So the number of assets coming in is lower. And normally I should have the logs connected if it's everything. Oh, maybe did I wonder if I dropped my if I dropped something on my collector that managed logs. But yeah, and infrastructure. That's weird. That's weird. That is not normal. I should have it work. But yeah, I have it on another. I pick another one that use the same things. I should have the connection now. Yeah, you can see now, once you have enriched, you got the link to the pod, and then I can click on the pod, and it goes back to the actual pod running in that cluster, and the details. So the connection goes well. You can do the same thing from the traces, so everything is smooth. So if you don't want to do complicated query, you can do that way as well.
So Henrik, the infrastructure component gets filled in because you're doing the enrichment of the Kubernetes data with the Kubernetes attributes processor, or
Exactly.
is it also with a combination, because you had Dynacube running earlier as well, right?
Yeah, because I have the Dynatrace operator, so the component exists, and then if I do a fetch spans really quickly, the last spans coming in, you will see that by sending OpenTelemetry, change the come on, change the display. Okay, you can see. I'm going to zoom in for those. That's the raw data stored in the spans, and we can see that there is the notion of Kubernetes cluster. So I didn't add those fields. You see,
Yeah.
I just added the Kubernetes metadata. But what happens is that when the data comes in, there is a default open pipeline, and open pipeline will pre-index the data, and then add those extra fields to attach the underlying entities. So same thing for the service. So you can see everything has been pulled in automatically. I just need to add the minimal fields. So then once the data comes in, boom, the extra enrichment done by the tenant will happen automatically.
Ooh, magic. Love it. That's very
I'm
cool.
running. I think we should just for the sake of this.
Yeah, we're coming up on time.
Is there any other questions? Because there is a lot of.
Oh, there's a question here. Any Copilot / I'm guessing LLM integration to replace those complex queries? I can answer that. Yes. We have an MCP server called the Dynatrace MCP server, and you can use it to basically use natural language to query Dynatrace, and bonus, it shows what that DQL query looks like. So it's actually a great way to cheat and learn how to use DQL, which has been super useful for my learning personally.
And then if you're up to things, then yeah, there's once you understand the data model, then sometimes I would say AI LLM relies on existing queries. He doesn't reinvent the wheel for sure.
Mhm.
So you will have queries that are, but if you want to do very, 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 very advanced query, like the one I showed you, then
Yes.
you need to understand a bit the data model behind the scenes. And once you understand it, then it's just fun. I used to play video games and I stopped since Grail was released.
That's replaced your fun
Yeah.
time with
And
writing
I'm trying
Grail
to
queries.
teach my kids, say, hey, stop playing Fortnite and do Grail query. It's gonna be better.
It is weirdly addictive, I have to say, especially like once you like I come from a SQL background, so I'm still like it's a bit of a paradigm shift for me. But I think once you get used to the syntax, it definitely and you get your first query run, and you're like, magic.
So Ishmael, I didn't cover all the four, so we covered two of them. So chain something, which was the most complicated one, but to be fair, and enrichment, and then filter is like a one cent. So you just use the filter processor, where you can put some OTel rules. And the last one was metrics. But metrics is a topic by itself. But yeah, let us know by in the chat if you are the topics that we didn't cover, by the way, that you would like to cover, and if you enjoyed that format, by the way, like ask me coding, whatever. Let us know,
Yeah.
because it would be cool to help you out if you have any thought, any doubts, or any technical questions about a specific topic.
Yeah, there's so many topics to cover. So if there are any topics that are near and dear to your heart, let us know. We can do a whole we can do a whole stream to cover some of the additional questions, I'm sure.
Did we have? Did we miss any questions? Because I didn't. I didn't watch the.
There was one. What are the best practices for integrating Dynatrace with heterogeneous monitoring architectures, and how does Dynatrace ensure data integrity and optimization when interfacing with other telemetry collection frameworks?
This is where semantic convention for OpenTelemetry exists, because you want to instrument things with a standardized naming convention for attributes, for services, and that's the key concept of everything. Standardizing things from bare metal, Kubernetes, serverless, whatever, it's going to be critical. And then once the data comes in, if you use the standardized fields, this is here today we used Kubernetes, which has standardized metadata, and we used it, and it works in an amazing way. So yeah, try to stick to the industry standard naming, and then things will be, yeah, like a dream, like you woke up from a nightmare and say, oh, everything is fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. And I just sent Carrie a link to my blog post on, because we did have a question on using LLM to query Dynatrace. I have a blog post on using the Dynatrace MCP server, so Carrie is going to post that very shortly.
And I think we are at top of the hour almost. So
yes,
if there are any specific questions or anything, if we missed them, we will get back to you offline, and we answer those questions. This, if you missed the live stream, don't worry. It's been recorded, so you still have the chance to watch the recording and
available
drop a
on
question as well.
demand. Yes, and Carrie just posted the links to the blog post on the MCP server. So,
Perfect.
hurrah! Amazing. Well,
All right. That was fun. I mean, at least I had fun.
I always learn cool stuff whenever we chat, so thank you.
Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for interacting and dropping a lot of questions. It was amazing. And have a pleasant day, end of the day, or a morning, depending where you're connected from. And see you soon for another Ask Me Anything.
All right.
Thanks
Bye.
to you. See you, Adriana.
See ya.